Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We're going to be starting off our service this morning by singing Gather the Spirit. However, once again, we tested everything during the week and the projection was working. However, it's not working. So we are obviously going to be looking for another solution to that. But in the meantime, we invite you to open up your hymnals to hymn number 347 in the gray hymnal. And it is Gather the Spirit. And we'll be singing the first verse and the third verse this morning.
Welcome to the Westside Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Jill Fleming, and it is my great joy to be gathering with you this day with my fellow speakers, Regina Brennan and Alice Murphy Soares. Scott Farrell and the Westside Chorale and John Hansen are providing our music today. Faith Iverson is lighting our chalice, and Amy Youngblood and Mike will be sharing our time for all ages. Henry Sikora and Nate Mesnard are our text experts, bringing us together virtually. And for the gifts of all these folks, we are grateful. It is a blessing to be able to worship together and be here with all of you today. Again, our projector has failed and we have no visuals this morning, so we'll make do without them. If you are here with us for the first time, or the first time in a while, welcome. We are so glad that you are here to share in this time, to make some space in your life, to attend to your heart and your spirit, to come together in community. Please visit our website or scan the QR code in the pews to fill out a getting to know you welcome form so that we can send you our weekly electronic newsletter, the Westside Week, which is full of information about upcoming worship services and other virtual and in-person activities. We hope that you'll join us after the service for conversation and community, catching up with everyone, and seeing warm faces on this first day of standard time. I hope you all enjoyed an extra hour of sleep. We gather today from many locations, and we take this moment to particularly acknowledge that our congregation resides on the traditional territory of the Duwamish people. In this acknowledgement, we recognize the Duwamish heritage imbued in the mountains, valleys, waterways, and shorelines that surround us all. May we nurture our relationships with our coastal Salish neighbors, especially the Duwamish people, and our shared responsibilities to this place. Let us take a moment to offer humble respect for this place and its peoples and renew our commitments to the work of authentic reconciliation. Whoever you are, wherever you have come from, whatever the color of your skin, whoever and however you love, however your body moves and your brain works, however you identify, you are welcome in this faith community. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has no test of faith, no creed or oath to swear. We have instead the promises we make to one another, commitments we make to healing a hurting world within and beyond our walls. Now, let's take a few moments to greet those around you in any way that feels safe to you. In addition to greeting friends, we encourage you to make a connection with someone new. Our opening words this morning come from the poet Rosemary Watola Trommer. Today it feels so simple. We are here to take care of each other. How could we forget? As if soil could forget, it is here to feed the trees. As if trees could forget, they are here to feed the soil. How could anything ever get in the way of generosity? How could we ever greet each other with any words besides, "How can I help you?" As if light could forget, it is here to help illuminate. As if dark could forget, it is here to help us heal. In each week's service, we invite a member of our congregation to light the chalice of our shared Unitarian Universalist faith. Today, our chalice lighter is Faith Iverson. We have asked our chalice lighters to respond to the question, what gives you hope?
Good morning, everyone. I'm actually feeling happy because I've been given permission to talk a little bit more because our projector is not working, and I have a lot of ideas about what gives me hope that maybe will be helpful to some of you. Really what gives me hope is reading books, and particularly books about people in terrible situations. When life feels overwhelming, I find hope in the stories of others who are in even worse circumstances. While I was facing a lot of unknowns and fear, as we all were at the start of the COVID pandemic, I kept thinking about a novel I had read about a year before called Fever, 1793. And it was set during the yellow fever epidemic in 1793 Philadelphia. And recalling this story, I felt hopeful while facing our own quarantines and shutdowns, knowing that we had benefited from so many scientific advances since that time, so much technology and medical things that they didn't have, knowledge they didn't have back then. And then when the pandemic went on, later in 2020, I decided to read The Great Influenza by John Barry about the 1918 flu. I see a few readers out there. It's a great book. It's about the flu pandemic in 1918, and I found hope in the many heroic responses of the people worldwide of that time and the medical advances that the book describes. And then in 2021, actually this was a book club selection. I brought it, A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century. And it's by Pulitzer Prize winning historian Barbara Tuchman. I don't recommend it to everyone. In fact, I got through this much. I think Scott finished it all if you want to know the ending. But I'm saving it for a rainy day because the stories of the bubonic plague and the 100 Years of War made the dilemmas I was facing in the second year of the COVID pandemic made me feel better about that. So this one is one. It's not just plague literature that I enjoy. I could tell you a lot about my guilty pleasure of true crime reading, but I also read biographies of people who showed courage and resilience in perilous circumstances, and I truly do find hope in these. One of my all-time favorites is Even Silence Has an End, My 6 Years of Captivity in the Colombian Jungle by Ingrid Betancourt. And when I heard, many of you know, she was kidnapped by the FARC when she was campaigning as a Green Party candidate for president of Colombia in 2002. And earlier this year, when I heard, after earning her PhD from Oxford, she was running again for president of Colombia, I was so helpful. She dropped out, but it's still a very inspirational story, and I always follow what she's up to, and I think of that memoir when things are not going well in my life. Earlier this year, I read a new biography of Holocaust survivor Lily Egbert. Egbert, who will be turning 99 next month, had been giving presentations at schools when the COVID pandemic suddenly canceled everything in early 2020. So she began using her great-grandson's TikTok account to keep sharing her memories of the Holocaust with young people. And she quickly went viral, and they got a book deal to write her biography together. And the title is Lily's Promise, Holding On to Hope Through Auschwitz and Beyond. And it's a great book for finding hope within tragedy. Sometimes I feel really hopeless about the drastic climate change that we're facing and living in right now, and it's a condition that has no historical precedence in living memory that I can read about. And so a book that combines science and science fiction has really given me greater hope for our human future with global warming. It came out in 2019. It's called After Geoengineering, Climate Tragedy, Repair, and Restoration by Holly Jean Buck. And interspersed with lots of scientific information are essays that imagine how society might transform to survive in a warmer world. It's not a happy story, but it did give me a lot of hope, and especially the science fiction parts, imagining new ways of living in the future. My own religious education included reading books of the Bible filled with unforgettable suffering, both acts of God like the flood and plagues, and human-caused atrocities like enslavement, persecution, and murder. And when I recall these Bible stories, it always makes me feel hopeful about a religious community's ability to overcome adversity and persevere.
So as faith lights our chalice, please join me in speaking the words of our congregation's affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant with one another.
All right, I invite you all to rise in body or spirit as we sing I Am Willing. And since we don't have the words up in front of us, we'll just have the congregation will be singing just the chorus part of it. We've done it before. And the words are, and I invite you just to take this into your heart. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift us up to the light of change. And I think that's particularly, you'll be singing that 4 times. So just own it each time. And whatever's coming up this next week, those are good words to remember. Okay. Stay facing me so you can watch my lips.
To be In a moment, we will engage in a collective act of generosity known as our offering. When we take time to actively support Westside and its many ministries with our gifts by text, check, or cash. Each month, we choose a community organization to share 1/3 of our undesignated offering gifts. That is, those donations not designated as your pledge contributions. For the month of November, our community giving recipient is West Seattle Food Bank. Because our Sunday worship schedule has switched to twice monthly while we explore the next steps in our professional ministry, there are fewer opportunities to extend our generosity to our community partners. Please consider increasing your contribution at each service so that we can continue to support the work of these worthy organizations. Now a bit about the food bank. In March of 2020, the West Seattle Food Bank and West Seattle Helpline merged into one stronger organization. Joined together, their services include the food bank, which also includes a mobile food bank and home delivery, a backpack program, rent and utilities assistance, community resource connections, bus tickets, the West Seattle Clothesline, and more. Together, they are working to prevent hunger and homelessness in West Seattle through the power of neighbors helping neighbors. So you can give by text by sending a message with the $ and the amount to 616-404-4171. If you need to update your payment information, text update to that same number. For folks here in the sanctuary who prefer to share your gifts by cash or check, the greeters will move among us shortly. If you'd like your gift to be recorded as coming from you, please use one of the envelopes in the pews. And now, please enjoy this gift of music, Let It Matter by Elizabeth Alexander, sung by the chorale. Thank you for the music, and thank you to everyone for giving as you are able to support Westside and West Seattle Food Bank. Your generosity of time, treasure, and presence are gifts that sustain us as a community. Each Sunday, we come together as a congregation in as many ways as we can to connect and to share that which matters most to us. At this time, we make collective space for holding our joys and our sorrows. Let us join our hearts and minds in the quiet of meditation and prayer. How shall we pray? First, let us be open to silence. Let us hear the sounds in this room, the noises outside, and perhaps sounds of the children downstairs. Let us begin to hear the soft beating of our hearts. And let us listen intently for messages from within. Next, let us feel gratitude for our lives and for our beautiful earth. As hard as life gets, as sad or lonely as we sometimes feel, let us always be warmed by the gifts of this life. Next, let us hold in our hearts all those known or unknown who are in need. May we find in ourselves the energy and knowledge to bring care to the world. And finally, let us be aware of the blessing that it is not ours alone to do the work of the world. Love and community work wonders that we by ourselves could never manage. In this time of silence, let us form our own prayers out of the concerns of our hearts. Amen.
In the year 1912, in the mill town of Lawrence, Massachusetts, more than 20,000 textile workers were on strike because of pay cuts and unsafe working conditions. Less pay meant less to eat when workers were already struggling to feed their families. A slogan used by suffragettes during that time who were marching for the right to vote, "Bread for all and roses too," quickly became the theme for textile workers and the strike became known as the Bread and Roses Strike. A women suffragist activist said, "When women have a voice in government, life's bread, which is home, food, shelter, and security, and life's roses, such as music, education, nature, and books, shall be the heritage of every child that is born in this country." 110 years later, we are still organizing and fighting so that the security of bread and roses of life are available to all. When you look around, it is evident that for too many, the struggle is still real.
My reading this morning is To Be of Use by Marge Piercy. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who stand in the line and haul in their places, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Over the past 18 months, I have volunteered at the White Center Food Bank along with a rotating group of volunteers from Westside. I think the simplest answer to why do I volunteer at the White Center Food Bank is to be of use. I have an individual responsibility to be of use, to attempt to do the right thing, to make the world a better place. But we have a collective responsibility to do more. This morning, we are exploring what is food justice, what we as a congregation have done and are doing with respect to food justice, and where do we go from here? Westside members currently volunteer at the White Center Food Bank once a month, packing food for home delivery, staffing the store where clients shop for food, and doing whatever else needs to be done. The mission of the White Center Food Bank is to minimize hunger while nourishing community, nurturing self-reliance, and embracing our rich cultural heritage, rich cultural diversity, rather. We started volunteering there the summer of 2021 while significant COVID precautions were in place. COVID dramatically increased the need for food bank services while complicating every aspect of food distribution. White Center is sometimes called the other international district. The White Center Food Bank provides culturally appropriate food to their diverse clientele in a grocery store-like setting. As in the story we heard, clients shop the shelves, deciding what they want to take home. Those of us who work in the store bag groceries, stock the shelves, answer questions, and carry out groceries to their cars, not unlike what a typical grocery store worker does. What the food bank, as have many other food banks in recent years, is to attempt to replicate the grocery store experience as opposed to the handout experience. Food justice is one aspect of economic justice. The United Nations International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights says, "Everyone has the right to an adequate standard of living, which explicitly includes food, clothing, and housing." We have a moral obligation as a society to feed and clothe and house people adequately. Locally, Northwest Harvest is about to launch the Right to Food campaign, whose vision is, we aspire for all people to have access to healthy, local, affordable, and sustainable food. The 4 tenets of this campaign are as follows. Food should be available, meaning either directly sourced from land and natural resources or by a well-functioning system of market distribution. Food should be accessible, both physically and economically, ensuring that people do not go hungry at the expense of other basic needs. Food should be adequate in variety to meet nutritional needs over the course of a lifetime, culturally responsive, and safe to eat. Food should be appropriate for the environmental sustainability of our food systems for future generations. Food should be available, accessible, adequate, and appropriate. That we even need to state this, much less have a campaign to make it so, is indicative of the broken nature of food supply and distribution, as well as income inequality in this rich country of ours. We have a collective responsibility to work towards systemic change in how we feed people. Now we will hear from Regina Brennan and then Alice Murphy Soares, and then I will offer some final words.
Good morning. I am Regina Brennan, a Westside member since 2004. And for 3 years, I was the coordinator for our social justice team during the 20-teens. We followed a model of having a leaderless group which grew organically according to people's passions and ideas. We began our social justice initiative, Food First, Nourishing Body, Mind, and Spirit, in January 2014, after an almost 6-month period of information gathering, soul searching, congregational surveying, and a detailed World Cafe process to determine what our focus should be. It became clear immediately that people in our congregation were concerned about community poverty, with hunger being at the top of the list. We knew that the predominant issue leading to hunger is poverty, but the issues leading to poverty are far more deep and complex. It's been stated that the opposite of poverty is not wealth, but justice. We tasked ourselves with providing activities to engage our congregants of all ages and abilities, to work with other churches in our community, and with people of varying classes, races, and skills. Here is a very incomplete list of activities and accomplishments that became part of this initiative right here in this church. We provided monthly meals for homeless youth at the Orion House Youth Center shelter in downtown Seattle. We hosted the Mary's Place rotating night shelter for women and children in collaboration with Peace Lutheran Church here in West Seattle, providing meals and shelter for up to 5 families at a time for whom there wasn't room at Mary's Place. We hosted on-site at Peace Lutheran for a full week, 3 times a year for almost 3 years. We volunteered for special projects and events at White Center Food Bank, including Senior Day, coffee and snacks on Thursday mornings before Food Bank opened, so senior Food Bank customers could socialize and share information. We also helped staff the baby pantry. Our landscape committee and Seattle Tilth worked together to build raised beds in our church garden where we planted, tended, and harvested produce to be distributed at our local food banks and to members of our congregation who could benefit. In 2015, we harvested and distributed over 160 pounds of vegetables. We held winter clothing and holiday drives for donations of items to organizations that help those who have very little and their children. We worked with Westside Interfaith Network, also known as WIN, at their Welcome Table event held every Saturday at a church in White Center, where a hot lunch is provided by volunteers for about 125 people every Saturday, and food and clothing are distributed as needed. We became involved in the beginning of the Delridge Grocery Co-op, located in the last food desert in Seattle, Delridge, purchasing membership shares, getting the word out, and attended meetings. The energy that went into these events was massive, and the evidence that we were making a difference in people's lives was palpable. In truth, it changed us more than those we served. And I forgot until this morning to include our work in immigration justice at the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma on this list. That was a very large effort and went on for a very long time. Having conversations, sharing meals, and interacting with women and children who had been homeless, knowing that now they would be on a housing list, was a life-changing experience. We made a difference. It was not social justice in itself. The social justice part was that Mary's Place existed and was funded to help marginalized women and children out of dreadful conditions so they had a chance to make their lives successful. Pouring coffee and tea for the often isolated elderly who came to the White Center Food Bank early on Thursdays to talk to other people of their own age, such as ourselves, was important for everyone. We served, but it was not social justice. Social justice is the existence of the food banks as part of a system that has purposefully looked for and found a way for people living in poverty to access food. Some of these activities are ongoing, and some have stopped as needs have changed. We still volunteer on occasion at the Win Saturday Welcome Table, and there is a contingent of Westside volunteers working at the White Center Food Bank every month, which you just heard about. Mary's Place has been able to open enough shelters to house and feed families on their journeys out of homelessness without having to annex church buildings and recruit volunteers. The Delridge Co-op is now a thriving concern. It was political commentator Bill Moyers who said, "Charity is commendable. Everybody should be charitable. But justice aims to create a social order in which, if individuals choose not to be charitable, people still don't go hungry, unschooled, or sick without care. I'm going to say that again because it is really something to think about. Charity is commendable, but justice aims to create a social order in which, if individuals choose not to be charitable, people still don't go hungry, unschooled, or sick without care. We want to renew our support of these organizations and movements of social justice. Let's continue to look hard at ourselves together and what we have come to believe are the causes of marginalization, to see if we can root out old, erroneous ideas, perhaps rooted in systemic racism and classism. Let's live into social justice. Let's carry on making a difference that always changes us, and then we can change things. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alice Murphy Soares. I come to Westside UU via several UU congregations I have attended, including the First Unitarian Church of Providence, Rhode Island, my first experience with the UUs, and most recently via the UU Church of Tucson, Arizona. Like many of you, I was raised Catholic. I have always had a belief in something greater. And at some point, I felt the need for a change in my faith. When I found the UUs in Providence, I was seeking a new spiritual home. And after attending my first couple of services, I thought to myself, I have finally found a religion that looks, sounds, and feels the way I always thought religion should. I am very happy to be here with you and to join in our shared beliefs, chief among them, social justice. And the subject I would like to call your attention to, as we've been discussing, food injustice. To me, food has always symbolized happiness and love. My fondest memories of childhood consist of family gatherings in which my mother cooked a big dinner and our family sat around the dining room table. When I was 11, my older sister, Kathleen, got married and took on the responsibility of family dinners. Kathy introduced me to the world of food. She was a self-taught gourmand. Every year, Kathy would pore over holiday editions of Gourmet and Savour cooking magazines. Food became a whole new experience for me, with delicious new recipes that surprised and delighted. Kathy taught me that her love language was feeding her family beautiful home-cooked meals. I was so fortunate to have grown up in a home where I never needed to wonder where my next meal was coming from. And I was incredibly blessed to have grown up with an older sister who elevated the consumption of food to an art form. At 22, I moved to Seattle, and at 28, married a man I have a child with. For the first 3 years of our relationship, I lived out my goals to express love in the same ways Kathy had taught me, by the sharing of food with my family and friends as a celebration of life. until I was divorced when our daughter was just 2. Due to economic and social changes in the fabric of the life I had tried in earnest to build, my world became plagued with fear and uncertainty. Suddenly, the life I had always assumed would be mine, in which I had a home, a partner, and a family, became a struggle for me to provide for myself and my daughter. I had known a friend from a support group who regularly visited a food bank in her neighborhood. I had felt sorry for my friend that she had needed help from a food bank. And a couple of years later, I found myself in the same position. With immense shame in my heart, I went to the Ballard Food Bank to register for services so that I could get weekly food supplies for my family. I was attending Edmonds College for a certificate program through Washington State's WorkSource. You see, in the wake of the recession and my divorce, my bachelor's degree from the University of Washington had been rendered obsolete. I needed further training in order to be competitive in the job market. When I arrived at the Ballard Food Bank, I sat in the lobby with at least 120 people that first day. As I sat waiting, I would learn exactly how humiliated a person could feel simply for not having enough money to purchase food from a grocery store. I felt utterly defeated as a human, and more significantly, as the mother of a young child. I was ashamed on so many levels. I was young, white, able-bodied, and educated. How could I possibly take services away from other people who had so much less than me? Unfortunately, the financial support I received from my former husband was not enough to cover rent, bills, and food, and while I was in school full-time raising our daughter. At the Ballard Food Bank, I was met with kindness and grace from strangers who gave me a shopping cart in which to shop the store. Volunteers at the different food stations lovingly and without a hint of judgment helped me to find food items I could bring home. I was also told that if I volunteered at the food bank, I could shop at the end of my shift. That one small gesture of allowing me to work for the food I took home would ignite in me a passion for food justice. Since then, I have volunteered for the University and Pike Place Market food banks, as well as Food Lifeline. And when I moved to Tucson to be with my elderly father, Elon, I volunteered for a time with the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona, one of the largest food bank distribution centers in our nation. Human beings need food to live. Let me repeat that. Human beings need food just for our survival. Access to food is a human right, and simply having the ability to feed our own bodies as well as that of our families is fundamental to our very existence. I hope that in sharing a little of my story, you too will be inspired to mobilize in this effort. I invite anyone who is interested in this issue to contact Regina in regards to how we might expand and continue our Food First initiative, or to brainstorm new ways we might come together as a congregation to better serve our wider community. This work does indeed have the power to change and save lives. Thank you.
So thank you, Regina and Alice. Wendell Berry, in his essay, The Pleasures of Eating, says most of us eaters these days are not participants in the agricultural cycle of planting, birth, and harvest, but are consumers of food products, and passive consumers at that. We don't question the industrialization of food production or our detachment from the growing and harvesting of food. Berry asks us to eat responsibly. How? By participating in food production to the extent that we can, by preparing our own food, learning the origins of the food we buy, and buying the food that is produced closest to our homes. Whenever possible, dealing directly with a local farmer, gardener, or orchardist. Learning in self-defense as much as you can of the economy and technology of industrial food production. Learning what is involved in the best farming and gardening. Well, okay, this is not that hard for many of us, and many of you already cook from scratch and grow food in your gardens and shop at farmers markets. These are individual actions that we can take as we are able, financially and physically. Beyond what we eat, we can work to make food more available to our local community through supporting local food banks with our time and money, and supporting our neighbors' other basic needs so that they don't need to choose between food and utilities or food and school supplies. People need to eat every day. We need to respond to the immediate needs of our neighbors. But we need to do more than this. We can advocate at the state and national level for a stronger social safety net, tax code changes that benefit low-income families, guaranteed basic income programs, more affordable housing, expansion of no-cost school lunches to more students at more schools. The list goes on and on. Our challenge as a congregation is to decide what social justice work we are called to do. We currently have our toes in the water with our food bank work and next week's convening of folks interested in environmental justice. There is so much work to be done, whatever direction or directions we go. We have done good work in the past. Now, as we return to some semblance of normalcy, it is time to do more. I hope that we can support a dynamic and diverse range of justice ministries informed by our commitment to the 8th principle, which puts our UU faith into action. Blessed be.
So if you'd like to take out your teal hymnals, those pretty ones that are in there too, we're going to be singing hymn number 1020, which is Wo Ya Ya. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able.
We
thank you, Scott and the Westside Chorale, along with John Hanson, for bringing our time together this week to an end. Deep thanks to everyone who participated in this service, most especially Regina, Alice, and Faith. As always, it is a pleasure and blessing to do this sacred work together. So, invite Faith to come release the flame. Our closing words. As we leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. May you go into this week blessed and blessing the world. We hold you in our love as you go.